What's going on, folks? Today we've got an LFX 3.6 GM that we're going to be removing the intake on. Necessary procedure if you're going to remove the intake to be able to do spark plugs. Trust me, it looks daunting, but it's not. I promise you, if anyone else can do it, you can do it too. Okay, so we're going to take a T30, remove this screw, and remove this oil fill cap. Now with that removed, it should just pop up off of these tabs. Now, we're going to start taking these clips out of here. And after you've got this cover off of here, you're going to start looking at this and you're going like, ah, God. Remember, this is probably assembled by uneducated people. Most of the parts are made by 8 to 12-year-olds. And it's not that big a deal. If man made it, you can fix it. We're going to get these cables loose right here. And you can use a tool or you can just pull them out like that. The little pushies generally don't break, but sometimes they do. Not a big deal if they do, but we want to get these cables free. Push this to the side, and then that pulls back. This is called the bleed tube for the coolant. What we're going to do is we push down on this, and then this will pull back. You want to make sure that your engine's not pressurized. And you can do that by waiting till the engine cools, then letting the pressure off slowly. We're going to remove these two 10mm bolts, holding this down. Now, just so I don't have bolts laying around, I'm going to reinstall these bolts because they're not necessary to come out for the intake to come off. The longer bolt goes right here and the shorter bolt goes there. This hose off of here, you're going to push it sideways. Make sure you have a catch pan underneath it. We don't need to drain out a serious amount of coolant, but some coolant might come out, so you want to have it caught so animals don't lick it up. Okay, so now we're going to do the same with this clip here on our throttle. Pull the red part back, push down on that, and pull it backwards. Taking a flathead screwdriver, we're going to loosen the two straps. Now remove the air hose right here. And if you're ever wondering what these little canisters on the sides of these air hoses are for, is when the throttle takes in air, it fills this up, and then that air is available immediately if you get deep into the throttle. Definitely could use its teats brushed. Whenever you have a throttle that looks dirty like that, you can simply open it up with your finger and you can clean the gook out from underneath there. Now we're going to grab a 6-inch extension and remove this bolt, and then the bolt that I dropped down inside the engine from right here, and this bolt right here. This bracket secures the power steering reservoir to here, and we need to remove that to get the intake off. There's that bolt I dropped. Luckily it didn't go inside the motor. I couldn't have done that. It's sealed up, dummies. But that's out of our way. Now we're going to start removing the 13mm bolts here on the top of the intake. This is our map sensor plug. Now this hose right here, if we reach down, it's going to be an identical plug to the one that was right here. You quite simply reach down there, pull the lock over, pull that up. Same style. Then this hose back here is our brake booster hose. There's no coolant in this. This creates vacuum, so your brake booster helps your pedal push into your master cylinder easily. When you take this clip off of here, and usually what I do is I'll grab it with a pair of pliers and wiggle it a little bit, and then it'll pop off. You don't have to get crazy with this thing, but that'll break the seal on there and make it easier to pull off. If you still can't get it off, get a pickup underneath there and break the seal on it. But I think I can get this off with 2 hands. They also make hose pliers that look like this. Just make sure you don't pinch the hose too much. It'll allow you to get these off a little bit easier. All right, if you ever have a situation where you can't get one of these off, just take your pliers and you should be able to pound this thing off here. Maybe, unless you're trying to show people on YouTube. Like that. It's kind of a pain. Most vehicles, I would have removed the brake booster hose right here and just left this hose attached. But it's connected to this janky Y right here. And I was worried that I'd break the Y because it goes down and also sends vacuum to something else as well. The entire time the engine is running, this is creating vacuum. That's why it's so important not to have vacuum, or intake leaks. Now you have a little clip down here that I broke. You also have a clip right here, which I think is going to be easier to get off once I get the intake up. Now, when you take out these 6 bolts, you're going to have to give it a nice firm tug, and it should break the seal between the intake and the lower intake. Now we can remove these 13mm bolts completely. All the bolts are the same length, and they're not proprietary to which hole you put them back in. Now there's a pushy that is securing this high pressure fuel pump to the side of the cylinder head, and then there's a 10mm bolt down here as well. I don't think we have to remove that cover completely, but we do have to remove this pussy. And to get these pushies out, the best thing to use is these pussy pliers. They're designed specifically for these pushies. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove this high pressure fuel pump cover. I removed that and the pussy right up underneath here. Make sure you remove the pussy completely. All right, now with that pussy removed, we can remove the intake. We're gonna do this gently. We've still got a connector back there that's hooked to it, so we're just gonna pull it up, get that out of the way, and pop this out of here. Then we can remove our intake completely. Now down here, we've got an electrical connector that we should be able to fill and unplug. And then we've got this clip right here, which goes over like that. And once you pull it, push it like that, you should be able to remove it. It's similar to the black clips that we removed earlier, but not identical than that electrical connector. Then your intake comes completely out. But then we're gonna take rags and we're gonna make sure that we cover up all of our intake ports. Trust me, from a person who's actually dropped a nut down one of these in the past, make sure you cover them up. All right, now this intake gasket pulls right up off of there. It's kind of a little bit sticky. Now we can get to the spark plugs, coils, and everything we need. If you believe that you have a defective coil in the rear here, switch that believed defective coil from the rear to the front so you can switch it out after you have your intake on and you don't waste money on a coil that you didn't need.
And better to take off the intake to do spark plugs.
Ah, it's easy as hell to take this intake off.
So
took me like what, 10 minutes to take it off? Now if you want to change your spark plugs, it's very, very simple. I usually take both fingers, but I'm gonna try to do it with one hand. Pull that clip back like that, push down on this rocker, and if it doesn't come up, taking a small screwdriver, you can stick it in the back of here and lift up on this clip. Just be really careful when you do that. You don't want to break the clip off. You want it to hold it because, well, you just want to be held all the time. Who doesn't want to be held? I like to be held. Anyways, now when you're replacing spark plugs, I will hardly ever use anything that's OEM. I don't care, it doesn't matter to me, but spark plugs are one thing that I always use OEM. Energy is energy, and these things lasted 120,000 miles. The OEM spark plugs will last another 120,000 miles. So keep that in mind when you're down at the Throttle Zone, getting your Bosch Platinum Plus sparks because they make the greatest of sparks. Always use OEM. Think General Motors, Chrysler, Ford, all of them other places make every part that goes inside that car. You are sadly mistaken and very ignorant. Ignorant's not a bad thing. We're all ignorant at one time. You might have even been ignorant before you started doing this. Now, I just reused my intake gasket. I put a little dielectric around it, put it back down. Not a big deal, doesn't leak or nothing like that, but if it's got any cracks in it or real flat spots, you're gonna wanna replace that intake gasket. I didn't. Now I drop my intake back down, start hooking up all of my connectors. Okay, so these bolts here are 18 foot-pounds or 25 Newton meters. We start with the center bolt and think about it like a pinwheel. Work your way out. Doesn't matter what kind of extension, or if you have an extension on there, it's not going to take away from your torque. And if that's not simple enough for you to understand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. we have 6 cookies. Now, when you go to place that intake down, rub your hands around the outside of it and make sure that there's no hoses or connectors underneath it before you start torquing it down. You'll know because you can push down on the center of the intake and it should fit into place flush with the lower intake. But be mindful that you could trap a connector underneath there, so I always go around pulling the connectors up, making sure I have everything that I need to plug back in, put that sucker back together, and you're rolling down the road again. I hope you dug this video. I hope it was helpful and you'll consider subscribing. My name's Clay with Clayway here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I try to help everyone I possibly can. So if you got an automotive question for me and it's not baby mama drama related, you can send me a message on Facebook under Clay's AC and Auto Repair. I'll try to answer it for you. No obligation, no payments, no nothing. It's all free. Don't be the next to them. Be the absolute first of you. And if anyone else can do it, you can do it too. God bless. Have a great day.